for me, it's more of a matter of, who's great at this and how do I just model what they're doing? So if you're extremely confident in sales, great, but even if not, and you're in this role, that's the opportunity is, this role can be successful for anyone. And the first thing to do is follow the top performers. What do they do day in, day out? What's their schedule look like? When are they making calls? How are they writing their emails? What tasks are they following up with? And you'll find there's a difference. I think for me, the surprising thing through my tenure is most people don't do this. And it's a valuable resource that's right next to you. It's someone literally on your team. And they're more than happy to set some time up and literally spill the beans on their success. So if you, the listener, want one takeaway from this meeting, if you haven't already done so, just set up some time with your top performer at your company, and you'll learn so much in that small amount of time.
Hey everybody, this is Morgan J. Ingram here, host of the SDR Chronicles, where I bring you motivational tips and tactics for your sales development journey, your sales journey, and also for your entrepreneurial journey, as I believe that sales development is the mantra and center point for your entire career and also for your life, and you use this skill set every single day. And today I have a guest, Taylor, who is from Everwise. We've connected actually a couple times on LinkedIn, and we've gone back and forth. It's the first time having a face-to-face conversation, so it's cool to have Taylor here today. And the topic that we're going to go over is how to set yourself up as a top performer in 2018. Taylor has posted multiple topics on this. He's been in sales development. He's now a team lead in sales development, and he's very passionate about this topic. So without any further ado, I'm going to let Taylor introduce himself a little bit further and why he's excited to be here.
Hey, Morgan. Thank you so much for inviting me here. I know it's an honor and privilege to be here. A little bit about myself. So I've actually been in sales dev throughout my entire career. I first started doing sales development. At the time, I didn't know that's what it was called, but I was in retail banking. So I was working for Chase Bank, doing prospecting, financial advisors, set up meetings. And that's when I kind of learned sales development 101 and what cold calling was. I became a top performer there simply because I was one of the few reps to actually pick up the phone. So that was pretty cool. And then, I got fortunate enough to have a friend from college talk to me about working at LinkedIn. So at the time, I didn't think I'd ever have a chance. But throughout the whole interview process, I think I was fortunate to be able to work there. And that was my intro to technology sales, the model of SaaS, and really seeing sales development as a whole really grow exponentially. So I was on the inbound team there. I became a team lead. And then I helped two other teams grow from about 3 or 4 reps up to 10. So I've been on multiple teams, was team lead for a few, and then wanted to get some additional experience before heading into management. And that's where I am today at Everwise, leading the sales development team here for about a small company of 100 folks. And it's really been a learning experience, to say the least, but happy to share, what's working and how to set yourself up for this year.
Yeah, no, that's I love it. So let's just talk about something that I just noticed. You talked about you were the only rep to pick up the phone, which is a lot of people don't like picking up the phone. A lot of people do not like cold calling in general. So talk about what made you decide to pick up the phone and move forward.
I'd say that the biggest hesitancy is moving away from the no. I think a lot of reps dread it because you're expecting there to be a lot of no's. And I think Jeb Blunt, he has a new book out really talking about why we need to just embrace that. And that's truly it. It's reevaluating your role, not as like needing 100 yeses, but you just need a yes or a no. And you just need to ask the prospect, hey, is this of interest or not? And I think having that mindset of just These are the activities. It doesn't matter if I get a yes or a no. I just need one or the other. It's a lot easier to kind of do that. And when you set yourself daily to do it, it's not really as big of a task as it is when you do maybe once or twice a week. So I've seen reps that be more successful just do it as a habit. It's not all reps. I know for me, sometimes it sucks. Like you don't want to do it, but when you set yourself up to do it on a daily cadence, it's a lot easier, and it gets easier from there as well.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree with that. And so we're talking about being a top performer, and I believe that it's a combination of all the skill sets that are in sales, doing cold calling, doing emails, doing social, doing video. What are some things that you believe that you're really good at that's helped you become that top performer? And how are you helping other people as a team lead do that?
Sure. So if I look at my past experience, and I'm talking to you, the listener here, the biggest thing that I would want you to focus on is a few things. So one is modeling. So myself, I don't even consider myself a great salesperson, or the average. I think for me, it's more of a matter of, who's great at this, and how do I just model what they're doing? So if you're extremely confident in sales, great, but even if not, and you're in this role, that's the opportunity is, this role can be successful for anyone. And the first thing to do is follow the top performers. What do they do day in, day out? What's their schedule look like? When are they making calls? How are they writing their emails? What tasks are they following up with? And you'll find there's a difference. I think for me, the surprising thing through my tenure is most people don't do this. And it's a valuable resource that's right next to you. It's someone literally on your team. And they're more than happy to set some time up and literally spill the beans on their success. So if you, the listener, want one takeaway from this meeting, if you haven't already done so, just set up some time with your top performer at your company, and you'll learn so much in that small amount of time.
And how do you? No, that's a good point. So how do you go about talking to that top performer of the company? I feel like most people are intimidated by that by even doing that proposition.
Well, the biggest thing is, like the company I work for now is a mentorship company. People love giving back. And just like your role in sales development, you have the biggest strength and skill that most people don't have. And that's the ability to ask a question. Hey, is this of interest? And so use your skill that you use every day to ask your top performer, say, hey, I'm looking to get better. I noticed you're one of the top producers here, or I noticed you're always crushing it. Would you have 15 minutes or 20 minutes to sit down this week to share a little bit more on your process? And 9 out of 10 times, they'll say absolutely. And maybe that one time they'll say, I'm busy, but how about next week?
Yeah.
So it's really
pretty much 100% of the time they're going to say yes, is what everyone needs to know.
Yeah.
There's nothing to hold you back from that. And what are some practical ways to make sure that this conversation is valuable, right? Because it's great that you got the meeting to go meet with this top performer, but what questions should you be asking them to make sure that it's valuable for both your time?
I think the biggest takeaways is, learn about their activities. So you can look at a top performer, or you can look around the room with other your sales colleagues, and you'll notice people are generally doing the same thing. But from a top performer standpoint, there are differences. So in this meeting, your goal is to say, the few questions is, what do you feel you do differently that's different than everyone here on the floor? And then 2 is, what's your mindset when prospecting, when cold calling, when scheduling a meeting? And there's value and gold in what they say there. That's going to be very different than most of the folks. So I'd say those 2 questions would be huge.
Yeah. And make sure you guys write that down, because those questions are critical. You need to make sure that every single conversation you're going into, it's fruitful and it's impactful and it's beneficial. So another thing that I've noticed that you've been doing a lot of is posting content. You've been doing it pretty consistently. You've gotten some really good feedback. How do you believe that's actually important for you and critical for you to being a top performer? And why is it important for 2018?
Well, I know there's a huge push right now for companies and marketing in particular to move to really being social and being present on social media. But I think the biggest win there is you're practicing your ability to present ideas that you have. And as you continue to build the skills in this role, you'll notice that as you post 5, 10 times, 15, 20, or you start doing videos, after a while, not only does it start to get easy, but this is a skill set that you have that most people now don't have. So you'll notice that it's easier to write more compelling posts. It's easier to grab someone's attention. It's easier to be more succinct when you're trying to speak with someone. So these are things that, it's a free platform, like LinkedIn, for example. It's a free platform to practice, and that's all it is, and it's your way to get your voice out there and just test things. You can see what people say, what people disagree with, and what things you're great at. You might find what you're passionate about is things people really care about. But if you don't try, you don't, post on LinkedIn or Facebook, you'll never know.
Yeah, that is true. And what techniques or tactics that you've gotten from those answers or just from content that you've utilized in your own process to help yourself be a top performer?
I think for me, if it's from a top performer standpoint, so I use LinkedIn from a branding perspective, because as we grow, we're going to need to hire some awesome talent. So if you're looking, for a new gig, please hit me up on LinkedIn.
The plug.
But I think, if you're in sales dev, this role is only going to be so much more important. If we look at the last year, right? Morgan, so you and I were talking, InsideSales.com released kind of a survey, and they found that there's 677,000 sales development reps out there right now. And that was of last year, so it will only grow. And then in addition, LinkedIn posted that, machine learning and data scientists, so folks working on robots that are going to take over the world. So those are the top two, in-demand jobs. But the third is sales development. And you'll notice it wasn't account executive. It wasn't sales rep. It was sales development. So what that's telling you is, if you want to stand out from the crowd, if you want to be a top performer, you need to be visible, right? So not only are these posts important for you to practice your skills, but they'll naturally help you emerge as someone to look for. And companies now, when you look at, all these folks that are day in and day out trying to get to your prospect, if you're continually showing up on their feed, they're going to say, I need to talk with him about getting him or her on my team, because as a brand, being visible is now harder than ever. So as a sales development rep, if you are providing value, but also being visible, you're only helping that brand so much more. And I think that will continue to be a bigger push in the next 5 years, because now with everyone having the same tools, that visibility part is imperative, in my opinion.
It's definitely critical. And I like Taylor's point here is that the brand is super important. And obviously the personal brand we can go into, that's a different conversation, but the personal brand is important. But I think what's more essential and more important is the brand of yourself as an SDR within your company, because you have to really think about it. And the front lines, every time you reach out to an account, every time you reach out to a contact, you are actually the first touch that they ever see of your company. So you have to make sure that that message makes sense so that you're building up the brand in the right way.
Exactly.
And so when you're really thinking about using your brand, you're using different tools that are out there. What are some tools that you kind of see are on the uprise, and what are tools that you use today to make sure that you're on the steady growth of being a top performer?
So yeah, I would say for the listener, there's 3 tools to really consider. And they're not necessarily tools like Salesforce or LinkedIn or SalesLoft. These tools are, number 1, your mindset. Number 2, your writing abilities. And number 3, your goals. So number 1, your mindset. So this is, I would say, like one of the hardest positions out there.
Right.
And as a sales dev, I know that I'm carrying a full quota, supporting 2 reps and managing a team. So I'm in there with you guys. I understand how hard it is, the rejections. But the thing is, for me, the mindset is I personally believe that what we do here is important. And I need to ask as many relevant folks whose job I can help as possible. So I call this the 99% rule. So at any given time, there's 99% of the folks out there I'm just not reaching right now by sitting in my seat. I need to actively drive activities to get in front of those people and simply just ask them, is this of interest? So why is that important? Because a lot of folks, especially from a team lead perspective, as a top performer and now as a manager, I see a lot of reps quickly complaining about the number of accounts they have or the fact that the account's already been worked. And that's simply not true. If you work in enterprise sales, you literally have hundreds of thousands of people out there waiting to hear from you that are probably needing what you have. And because of your mindset of saying, hey, this account's been worked, they're not going to look at your product. They're going to go look at a competitor's. And that's important because now you can view your role simply as a messenger. It's not about yeses and nos. It's about, hey, how many people can I ask? And you'll be surprised of the number of people and the types of people that you thought would say no. They're eagerly awaiting to hear from you, and they say, let's set this up. So that's number 1, is your mindset. Be positive. I think the second one too is the modeling piece. So when, again, follow your top performers, but the other thing is when you look at your day-to-day, you really want to understand the hours of diminishing returns. So as you start the day, you're fresh, right? But if you're using that hour to go get coffee, to look on Facebook,
you're going to burn yourself out.
Instead of doing the hard stuff, do the cold calls, send those emails. And then after those first few hours, take a break. Most reps are wasting that time. And that's the unfortunate part, is there's so much opportunity out there. And I see so many reps simply wasting their time. If you as a rep want to get better, those first few hours in the office, if you are productive, you will outshine everyone. But not only that, you'll be able to leave earlier than everyone else. You'll have time to work out at lunch. You'll have time to take breaks. You'll have time to meet with the VP of sales about some ideas you have. But if you're not utilizing your time correctly, by 3:30, I see so many reps on Facebook, social media, because it's a grind and you get tired. But because you didn't put that time in at the beginning of the day, you're not going to hit your numbers.
Yeah, no, and that makes sense. And you just mentioned a lot of things right there. All these tools, all these systems, all these practicalities. I'm a huge person into making a schedule, made a video on it, even wrote a blog post on it, because I believe if you have the right schedule, then you're going to be good. If you don't, you're going to put yourself in a very bad spot. Talk a little bit more about where you see the SDR role today, because most people see it as an entry-level position, but I think there's so many different things you have to do within this role now that it's definitely not an entry-level mindset.
Exactly. So cultivating, like everything we've been talking about, if I want sales development help, who do I go to? Who do I think about? And that's easy. That's Morgan J. Ingram, because he's constantly every day posting about sales development, getting better. And if I'm a VP of sales and I need help, I'm going to go to Morgan J. Ingram because he's the one that I see the most and he's giving me relevant daily value.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Appreciate it.
You have to reach out, by the way, if that's the case. But as a rep and you're noticing, man, this job is so hard, you're not alone. This job is brutal right now, but that's the opportunity in it. And the skills that I see that will help anyone become a top performer moving forward is the fact that number 1 is how to write persuasive email. So I was a business degree in marketing. I graduated with distinction. I was a president of 3 clubs. And yet after college, no one wanted to hire someone entry level with a marketing degree because you had to be working at least 5 or 10 years.
Yeah,
right?
which
So you
makes
go into
zero
sales.
sense.
0 cents.
Entry level
Right?
position, but you need 10 years of experience. Wait, what?
Exactly. Yeah. So, if you're feeling that, I hear you. But the biggest things that I've learned this year, especially at a startup, is, when I worked at LinkedIn, we had everything figured out for the most part. We had an amazing talent brand. We had everyone in the market pretty much knowing who we were. We had a great engine. We had awesome products. But now as a startup, like many folks who are listening to this, it's tough. No one knows who you are. No one's going to take your call. So what's the difference is you need to learn how to write a great email. And you'll notice, Morgan, we see time and time again, people blasting SDRs.
Yep.
And it's not even their fault.
Left and right.
Not only were they weren't trained, not only were they not trained correctly, but you didn't learn this in school. And your company, generally speaking, is still figuring out what messaging works. So now you're working with a poorly written or, let's say a minimum working message right now that's not getting a lot of traction. And then you get blamed for it as an SDR. And that's unfortunate, right? That needs to end, by the way. But how you can fix this is learn copywriting. So when I took on the role of leading this team here, the biggest thing to me was figuring out, man, how do we get more responses to our emails? And I think learning about what emails am I getting and how are they written, and then doing some research. I mean, there's Google out there, there's YouTube, HubSpot. I think you have Salesfolk. They give you great intro classes, but also picking up some books on how to write copy. And within a short period of time, you'll get a sense of, hey, I think I'm getting it. And you'll see so much more success than others simply by being inquisitive and bettering yourself to learn the skill. And moving forward, how to not only write effectively, but sell. And that has never been a skill that, again, in my, 5+ years in sales development, but also in school, I wasn't taught that. I was taught to write, but not how to sell through email. And so that's huge. And then the second thing is, if you're not cold calling, you got to do it. And if you're scared, there's so much free content out there that it doesn't make sense not to look at that.
Right.
Any skill that you can get now, you can learn online for free or cheap. So you have to invest that time in yourself. You have to. And then investing your time in yourself. What are some, I guess, 3 things here: books, podcasts, and videos that you watch to make sure that you are getting yourself to a high performer standpoint, and some stuff that you hand off to your reps? Okay. So let me talk about 3 books I brought that I felt were really helpful. So this one's called Peak Performance. 2 guys, Brad Stolberg and Steve Magnus. And what I love about this book is it finally gives you the sense as an SDR that when you're grinding for an hour, 2 hours, and you feel burnt out, and you have, let's say, a sales manager say, hey, why aren't you working? Read this book and you'll see why. The science is finally there that, as you focus your time, you want to have sustained sustenance or sustained performance. Mm-hmm. And what that means is, every hour that you focus, your brain literally needs 10, 15, 20 minutes of break from the cold calling or the selective email. And what that does, it allows you to recharge. And it's about, I think in the book, it's like 17 minutes. But after that, you'll find that you can do another hour of really focused cold calling or sourcing. And you'll get a whole lot more when you take more breaks.
Right.
But there's a lot more in this book, so I highly recommend that. For the copy, I think, again, the writing skills, when I look at things that people just aren't focusing on, is all we hear is how bad emails are, but we're not hearing, hey, learn how to write a great email or learn how to write. So this book right here by Joe Sugarman is called the Adweek Copywriting Handbook. This is a must-have. If you want to learn the psychology of the headlines that you're trying to write, or the copy and the persuasion of your emails, get that book, because it'll give you the psychology of why, and it'll also give you a structure as to what might entice someone to open and read your email
Right.
when they have about 30 other emails from other SDRs all over the country trying to get their time. You need to learn copy in order to be successful there.
Yep, 100%.
Podcasts, obviously listen to Morgan J. Ingram. I think as you look at sales development, I know the original question was, what's going to keep you a top performer this year? And a lot of people, I'd say, we don't have the expertise in this space. At some of these companies, you need to follow people like Morgan because he's advocating for your role. And like myself, a lot of times you have to go outside your organization to learn the latest and greatest of what is working. So follow Morgan and look at his daily posts. And after a while, you'll get a sense of this is what a winning mindset looks like. And I guarantee you'll do a whole lot better.
Awesome. Well, Taylor, thank you so much for coming on the SDR Chronicles. Super excited to have you here. Last question I ask every single person that hops on the podcast. What is the number one piece of advice that you have for SDRs as they enter into their new role?
Honestly, be positive and follow success. Follow what works, not what should work. Get time with those top performers. And then above all else, follow Morgan J. Ingram.
Cool. Well, there you go, guys. Taylor, thank you so much for hopping on. As I always say, guys, keep dialing, and I'll see you guys soon.